couple more questions on the, on the West Bank. There's been a settlement in a UNESCO site and so on. I wonder if you're aware of the report and if you have any comment on that.
I've seen those reports, Said, and again, this administration has spoken out against Israeli actions that undermine territorial continuity for a future Palestinian state. Something like this would certainly be that. Every single one of these new settlements would impede Palestinian economic development and freedom of movement and undermine the feasibility of a two-state solution. Simultaneously, Said, what we have said a number of times continues to be the case, which is that the Israeli government settlement program, we find that to be inconsistent with international law, and we certainly oppose the advancement of settlements in the West Bank, and this would certainly be an example of that.
If you indulge me one more, Vedant, just to follow up on what Jennifer mentioned about crossing the 40,000 mark. I mean, this is more than 10 to 1 as far as all lost life is precious and so on. But now we have at least 10 to 1 Palestinians that have died. When will enough be enough? Because I know you say, one more, we don't want to see it, but the fact of the matter is that you've been saying this since last December, and we have killing every single day. Every single day, no 24-hour goes by without killing at least 36, 40, 50 Palestinians, most of them children. So, I mean, when will enough be enough?
Said, what we are exactly focusing on is trying to have a resolution that would allow the fighting to stop. That's why we have time and time again, and again just a moment ago, I said that the best thing for the parties to do to minimize impact on all, including the Palestinian civilians, is to accept and finalize a ceasefire deal, one that is encompassing of the hostages being returned, an influx of humanitarian aid, and broader diplomacy to happen for the region to get out of this endless cycle of violence. Tom, go ahead.
Follow up on the settlement announcement that Minister Smotrich made yesterday. Do you think your opposition to it will stop this settlement being built?
That is not really for me to speak to, Tom. These are obviously unilateral Israeli actions, and when it comes to the United States, not only have we had made our perspective and our point of view on this incredibly clear, how it is a detraction from Israel's security, how it takes us away from a two-state solution, but we also continue to have tools in our tool belt to hold to account individuals who we may think be contributing to greater insecurity in the West Bank. I'm not going to speculate on that from here, though.
I mean, that's a separate point, but this is a government-announced settlement. This isn't an outpost. So, I mean, it's the same question, really. If you oppose it, I don't quite see why you can't stop it.
I'm sorry, I don't really follow, Tom.
I mean, you've opposed hundreds of settlement announcements, and they are all then built. So what's the point of repeatedly saying you oppose them?
It is important for us to make clear our perspective and our point of view, as well as to raise these sometimes tough and difficult conversations with our Israeli partners, and we'll continue to do so.
But doesn't it just expose the weakness of your position in that you can say something and say it's your policy, but clearly it doesn't have any effect on the ground?
I would take issue with that characterization, Tom. These are not actions that the United States is party to, certainly not ones that we are involved in. Ultimately, Israel is a sovereign country that's going to make its own decisions. That does not detract or change from the fact that when we see things, when we see policy decisions, when we see actions that we disagree with, that we think are not just in the interest in the United States, but also not in the interest of the region, we won't hesitate to say so. It is not dissimilar from circumstances in other countries in which the United States is not party to those decisions, but when we see something we disagree with, we certainly will make our voices heard, and that continues to be the case here. I will also say that the bigger issue here, Tom, is that we want to see these kinds of things end, and that is why we're so committed to getting to a two-state solution, because we think that is the only path forward for the region. And when we see things like this that are inconsistent with that, we won't hesitate to say so.
Well, you want to see a two-state solution, but I mean, Smotrich himself said in announcing the settlement, we'll continue to fight the dangerous idea of a Palestinian state and establish facts on the ground. This is my life's mission, and I will continue it as much as I can. So that's what you're up against when you're saying you oppose the building of these settlements. Clearly this will go ahead, and it will not just go ahead, but it will go ahead in occupied territory where you are arming the military force which will facilitate its establishment. So you're saying you oppose it, but you're arming the military force that facilitates its establishment.
We have a security relationship with the IDF, Tom. I don't dispute that. That of course continues to be the case.
How is building a settlement about self-defense of Green Line sovereign Israel?
We don't think it is, Tom. We do not think that the expansion of the settlement program is in Israel's security interest. We think it detracts from a two-state solution and causes further instability and insecurity. I've said these things a number of times. The point that I'm making is that these are not actions that the United States is party to.
Can I just follow up?
Yeah, go ahead.
Again, I asked about Ben Gvir and what he's done on the Temple Mount, and to Tom's question, you mentioned tools and the U.S. toolkit. The U.S. hasn't used any tools in that toolkit. And I just want to understand, is that because these are U.S. government officials? These are also U.S. government officials that Netanyahu...
You mean Israeli officials?
Sorry, Israeli government officials that you wouldn't use... is that because you can't use U.S.
So Camilla, I would never
sanctions
preview actions from up here that would be inappropriate. Not
but I
just
only bring
in the
it up because you mentioned the toolkit.
Of course,
so.
not just in the context of Israel, but in any country. I wouldn't preview actions from up here. Look, when it comes to there are across the world, when it comes to governments that we engage with, whether they be partners, allies, or countries that we have adversarial relationships with, there are colorful characters in any government. What the United States is focused on is the policy and the policy decisions that they pursue and the United States pursue, and particularly when it comes to attempting to subjugate or change the status quo at Temple Mount, Haram al-Sharif, we would take issue with that, and expansions of a settlement program, we would take issue with that. We find both of these things to be a detraction of Israel's security and fuel more insecurity and instability in the region. And we'll raise these and continue to have these very tough conversations. In terms of what actions we can take, Camilla, I'm not going to preview or speculate from up here.
Okay, but it's fair to say that there haven't been any actions taken other than condemning it verbally.
When it comes to officials within the government, sure, that can be a fair assessment to take. But you have seen us, particularly when it comes to actors in the West Bank, we have found to be sowing division, sowing instability, sowing insecurity. We have taken action, and we've spoken about that a number of times from up here.
I will just remark that the reason that these actions are being taken by settlers in the West Bank is because they do get a green light from said government officials to be able to behave like that. But again, that's, that to me that seems linked, and that's why these questions are being asked, but I'll leave it.
Great. Alex, go ahead.
Health officials there say that this death toll has surpassed 40,000 people. I was wondering if the State Department has any comment on that.
So I would echo what I have said a number of times this week, which is that any number above zero, when it comes to the number of civilians who have lost their lives over the course of this conflict, is saddening, is troubling, is heartbreaking. I think, as President Biden himself said earlier this month, the Palestinian people have endured sheer hell. And since October 7th, too many men, women, children, civilians who have had no role in are just impacted by a crossfire of Hamas's making. We've urged and will continue to urge the Israelis to conduct their military operation in a way to avoid civilian casualties. As I've said, there's a moral and strategic imperative there. But Jenny, since you asked the question, I want to highlight, though, that the fastest way to create improved conditions for all, including the Palestinian people, including Palestinian civilians, is for the parties to accept and finalize this deal for an immediate ceasefire, hostages released, and increased humanitarian aid and safe civilian return. And we really hope that with the process that restarted today, that is what is awaiting for us at the other side of the finish line.